Barbarian. That sounds like there could be a chance for some mini pools of blood here, but we'll see. But let's start off here with the IMDb plot. A woman staying at an Airbnb discovers that the house she has rented is not what it seems. Alright, that sucks. That's why we don't do that Airbnb stuff here. Chance for some bad stuff happening. We've seen a couple of movies like that. But this one is a little bit different, and we'll get into that in a second. But this one is fairly new movie here, so we'll try to keep this as spoiler free as possible. Which is a little hard to do, um, but we'll think about it. If I'm gonna spoil something, I'll let you guys know. Um, but let's see to start. So yeah, I guess as I was watching this, I don't tweet too much when I watch stuff. But I remember when I watched this, and I'm kind of catching up on some of the horror movies that I've missed as we get close to the end of the year now. And as I was watching this, I kind of like noticed that it took about almost an hour for the I guess the big reveal, the big surprise. I guess the uh, true horror of the moment when horror kindly showed its face. So it kind of took about an hour to get there, and it was a little surprising. I mean, they kind of teased at it, and as it kind of starts. And speaking of that beginning, I guess here we have a young woman who has come into I guess, poor side of town, a place that you don't really want to stay, but I guess she didn't know any better, or she didn't have enough money to stay at a better place. She is looking for a job, so maybe that's why. But um, she ends up in this house, and unfortunately for her, someone else is already staying there. And being it is, her kind of arriving in the middle of the night and so forth, and not really anywhere else to go. After she knocks on the door and then or can't get in because I guess the keys are supposed to be left outside. She has no other choice but to stay here overnight. But the guy who opens the door, he's kind of going back and forth. He's trying to be nice, but also leaving a little mystery to him. And obviously, her being a young woman, she's kind of doing the right thing. She might have seen some horror movies before or so forth, so she's hesitant to go in, and even after she does, is highly suspicious of what is happening here and why this guy is here when she's supposed to be there. And but then as the night kind of rolls on and things kind of go, she kind of gets a little comfortable, and proves that maybe he's not up to no good. So like I said, it takes about an hour to get to what is really going on here. So until then, it's a little bit of this back and forth, and you could almost say it's even the flip side of it. The guy has a moment or two where he might be a little suspicious of her, or just be like, hey, what is she doing? So she kind of gives him a moment or two of pause. So they kind of play this game back and forth for a little bit, and then the movie really does a flip. And I guess again, I'm trying to be spoiler free here, but I guess she while he was staying there, then he kind of leaves early in the morning, and then she does some investigating in this apartment house, um, and finds this room, and we know in horror movies, you go exploring in these rooms, and not good things happen, and she does the exploring thing and goes down to one room, which leads to another room, and then she kind of gets locked downstairs, and of course she's already panicky as it is. So of course major panic is happening now, and still no horror yet. And then the guy comes back and he's able to get her out, but then he wants to investigate. So all this investigating, we know in horror that's just not going to work. So they go down, or he goes down by himself now, and she's convinced it's a bad idea, that there might be someone down there, but he's got to investigate. and she gets worried. She's got to go after him, and then bam, then we have what I keep mentioning is the horror of the film that comes, and yeah, it is interesting, and you get a quick kind of glimpse of it, and then the movie kind of rewinds a little bit, and in enters Justin Long's character, and he is apparently the owner of this house, and he's in a little trouble of his own, so he has to go to the house. I won't get dive into what his problem is, but uh, he ends up back at the house, which he owns. It's his property, and he wants to sell it now. And when he gets there, I guess the two people that are staying there, as mentioned, don't seem to be around, and he doesn't know that they're even supposed to be there to begin with. And he kind of goes in and gets kind of settled. And then he finds this magic doorway or unmagic doorway, and he kind of goes looking himself, and finds himself in the same similar kind of trouble. And I guess it's really hard to say what goes on next, to being spoiler free. But let's just say that this movie, a lot of horror fans saw this before me, and a lot of people praised it. It's got a good rating here on IMDb, and I kind of had some expectations without knowing what the secret is and what is going on here. There's some expectations with it named Barbarian. I thought maybe there was a chance for lots of blood and guts and maybe a high kill count, and maybe that's what was going on here. And I thought there was going to be, a high level of brutality maybe going on, and some torture. And there is a little bit of brutality and a few, in a moment or two. Might be a scare. There's some creepiness. Yeah. But, as I kind of look back and kind of think about everything that happens in this movie, I kind of get the Barbarian title, but I guess it kind of has different meaning to it, or a different way. I guess the how to say this was spoiler free. I guess the horror of it is I guess the horror is the horror because it's kind of basic and kind of maybe back kind of going back as Barbarian, if that makes any sense. I don't even know what the hell I just said, but sometimes it's hard being spoiler free here. But yeah, so I kind of get that. So it's more of that than having to do with being super brutal and everything. There is one scene, and I think I don't know if it was Twitter or something I was browsing through the other day, mentioned that a scene in this movie might be one of the most disturbing of the year in horror or whatever. Yeah, it was pretty disturbing. I don't know the most disturbing of the year. I mean, to go back and look, but yeah, pretty crazy scene, I guess we'll call it. And I didn't actually click on it, so I'm going to assume the scene and not know for sure. But I'll just say it does involve Justin Long and the horror that's in this movie. And yeah, it is a creepy scene, and yeah, kind of disgusting if you really think about it. But then again, on the flip side, and I'm trying to say this very carefully again, you have the word barbarian and kind of what I told you, my expectations of that. But if you flip this around and you really look at the horror, and for those who've seen the movie, you can kind of go along with what I'm saying here. The horror in the movie, you almost feel sorry for it. And it's almost not even a story of being a barbarian. It's really actually a sad story, and almost wants you to be one of these horror movies where you almost want to root for this horror, and or I think there's reason to feel sorry for the horror in this movie, and obviously you feel sorry for our characters and so forth, but that's usually the easy thing. And some of these characters are going to give you moments where you're not so sorry for them, and you're not going to root for them, and you're going to be maybe happy with what they get and what they deserve. So it's kind of a flip flopping there of where you stand and who you're rooting for at the end of the day. And um, I guess there's a few other things to say, but I don't want to kind of spoil the events that happened after we first kind of see the horror that makes the appearance. I will say the young woman who plays Georgina Campbell, she does a really good job. Obviously, Bill Skarsgård is in here, and big fan of him and what he's been able to do. And Justin Long, I think this is definitely an improvement over, was it House of Darkness, which I recently reviewed. Didn't really, well, you guys can see the review for that one. But yeah, I think the acting is good here, and definitely the horror here is good, and definitely creepy and so forth. But I think it is very interesting that it will give you pause, and you might not even think that of it being Barbarian. You might think of feeling sorry for it, and seeing they give you a little backstory of how it came to be, and that's another flip on the story here. It kind of jumps, like I said, we see these two people meet at the apartment, then we see a little bit of Justin Long, and then we're going to see a complete other kind of story where it kind of goes backwards in time to see more about this house and where this horror might have come from. And, that's kind of an interesting take. And I like the way they did that too, because it's very easy that they could open this movie and opened it in that way, and kind of introduced that and did that kind of segment at the beginning and then fast forward and whatever. But I thought that it was well placed to do that later in the film, to give you a little hint at why the horror was there, and where it came from, and then that kind of plays a role. There's some other surprises there at the end for you. So I thought that was a good thing as well. So yeah, I think it was a very good story, whatever, and like I said, I kind of had some expectations of maybe it being bigger and bloodier and so forth like that. But yeah, it kind of instead, it kind of painted this picture, kind of gave you this horror that at first you're gonna be freaked out and be like, what the hell is that? And it's gonna be super creepy and so forth. But then there's gonna be that point where maybe, for some of you, maybe some of you don't really care, but some of you may have it feel for it a little bit, and then there's characters going back and forth and so forth, and like I said, some surprises. I don't want to get into too much detail about the back half of the film, and save that, because I really not that the beginning was bad, and as you see the two characters kind of going back and forth playing off each other, you're just you're wondering, you're thinking, is this the typical film where, the guy's already there, so he is, just playing it off, and then eventually, you're waiting, the moment, is he going to flip on her, or, hey, maybe surprise me, she's going to flip on him. But then, you kind of see that, yeah, there's, other stuff going on here, and, that's where it goes. So, it was entertaining at the beginning to watch them kind of go back and forth. I was just kind of, seeing me like, hey, this is Barbarian. So when is somebody going to die? When's that going to happen? But instead, they took their time. And like I said, I think it took approximately an hour, give or take, before we really get into the flip side of the film. And then things kind of go downhill for everybody involved in this movie. But I did like it. And I can agree with everybody that said, it did turn out a little differently than what I thought. But still a good film. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I think I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it 4 pools of blood. I guess I did really enjoy the movie. I guess maybe if it had maybe a little bit more of those expectations, gave me some more blood and guts and so forth. Maybe I could have given it a little higher. Like I said, it's not a huge kill count here. I was kind of having those expectations and so forth, but it didn't turn out that way. But still good. Gave a good mix of some creepy stuff and some scary moments and again, just food for thought about where this horror came from and your feelings towards it. Sometimes it's very easy to like a bad bad guy in a movie, and they're always bad. You know, you look at Art the Clown. I don't think anybody's feeling sorry for him. He just wants you dead, and that's it, and so forth. But here it's a little bit different. So you know, it's good. You know, we get that from time to time, so it's not bad to see. Sometimes I complain about it, but you know, in this case, I think it worked out and worked out for the story, and just kind of thinking of, you know, the person writing this, where the hell they came up with this you know, kind of wild tale, and I'll maybe, you know, thinking of maybe comes from some issues or whatever along the line. Not necessarily them, but you know, maybe they read something about someone else or something. I don't know. But those who seen the movie might know what I'm referring to. But with that, I will wrap it up before I spoil anything. Tried really hard not to spoil anything here for you guys. So, yeah, 4 pools of blood, and that is out of 5 for Barbarian. And with that, for more reviews, you can find them at horrorreviews.blogspot.com. The link is down below in the description, along with Twitter, Facebook information. You can reach out to me there. You want to talk about this movie, talk about other horror and so forth, and comment section as well. You know, if you want to talk about what goes on in this movie, you know, if you want to spoil it, you can spoil it. I mean, whatever. I don't, you know, I try not to when I can. But if you want to talk about the horror that actually happens in the movie, or anything else about this movie, feel free to do so down there. And of course, like, subscribe if you want the video reviews. If not, head over to the blog. Haven't written as much lately, been trying to do more of these video reviews, but there are plenty of written reviews there from this year and previous years if you want. So with that, I thank you again for joining me, and I will catch you in the next review, horror fans.